It's time for the chip race.
It's time now for probably my favourite interview of the entire season. This is Fergal Nealon with Annette O'Carroll.
So I'm here with Annette O'Carroll in Carney, North Sligo. Annette, a very well-known player on the local circuit. So, Annette, how did you first get into cards?
Oh Lord, Virgil, that was a long time ago. I came to Sligo as a young teacher in 1979, and I was sharing a house with a few others, and they were playing cards, and we started playing cards. First and foremost, we started playing 25, and then there was poker, a bit of poker around. It was mainly draw poker, and over the years, I suppose in the early 80s and in the surrounding counties, there would be various different types of games. Donegal was a great dealer's choice place. Mayo had a good bit of choice. Leitrim and Sligo was mainly draw. There was a decent game of 7 card stud in Leitrim. So over time just learnt all kinds of games. It was always a limit game. We never played anything like No Limit, and we played for years and in various different houses and in hotels, and then tournaments started up, and a local guy introduced the West of Ireland Open, and I would have won that 2 years. And I suppose this is like everything else, is if you have a bit of success, you want to go back and re-achieve what you've already done. So that was my earlier career in poker, and as poker progressed, I suppose you're talking about in the late 80s, early 90s, poker was probably taking a huge hammering. Players were getting older and literally dying, and there wasn't as much poker around. Young people didn't have a clue what a card was. They had just no idea physically what a 5-card deck was. And then it started coming on television, and of course there was an explosion of new people, and poker changed entirely. The mega game became the Texas No Limit Hold'em, which has its positives and has its negatives. And the first Texas Hold'em tournament I went to was probably about possibly about 12 years ago. It was up north. A northern guy was actually running it. It took me a while, while I understood the game. Like, the game was always a 5-card game, but it took me a while to understand the rules and the dynamics of it. And so then we would have come back and we would have started playing it locally, and would have introduced a local game that we had one night a week, a local pub game that would start at 8:30, be over around 1 o'clock. You had 60, 70 people. And there was suddenly a whole range of new people that I'd never seen before that started showing up to things like this. So it was huge. So it wasn't a resurrection that of what was there. It was a new evolution in poker altogether, because very few of the people that I would have played with for years would have actually transferred over to Texas Hold'em. I tried to, and I struggle with it since I've tried. I haven't mastered it by any manner of means. I would feel a greater comfort level with any of the other games, and especially any kind of limit game, because the limit was huge for us, really.
I believe back then you did quite well in the local games.
I did. You had your successes and you had your failures, and that you would be modest in success and you would be modest in failure. And because it was, that we typically played a tournament, and then we typically played a bit of cash on the side. But I'm not saying it was harmless. It was never harmless money, but it was never big money. It was enough to hurt. It was enough to be satisfied that if you won, but it was never enough to do damage. The minute poker starts damaging your other life, that would have always been a very big concern of mine. And the only people who have managed to have a lifelong recreational dimension in poker, or to have a lifelong recreational life in poker, are those that have managed that kind of bankroll. That's why Texas Hold'em No Limit scares me.
Now, can you tell us, because while you played a lot of card games throughout the Northwest,
Yeah.
deep into the night, Your day job was quite the
Oh.
opposite to many people. Like, can you tell us a
Absolutely.
little bit about
Oh.
your day job?
Yeah, I have been a teacher. That I'm recently retired as a secondary school teacher, a catechist, and I would have been teaching in an all girls convent secondary school, a fantastic place to work, and have had a fantastic career, and that would have always been my focus. And poker was something that my colleagues used to joke me about, or joke or have a bit of fun. That, are you going to a game where you must be a shark, or you must be a gambler, or you must be, and it came to the stage that you don't even bother trying to explain that you're none of those things. The thing that poker did for me socially was absolutely huge. I that I worked in a school, all girls, a staff that were predominantly female, all the middle class, conservative people by and large. The best and finest of friends I have made there, and friends that have taken me through illness and all kinds of things that go wrong in your life, and the fantastic friends that I made it. But poker gave me a different release altogether. You played with a guy who was 19. You played with a guy that was 90. You had a different kind of crack. There was an energy and a challenge about it. There's always a challenge, and I know one of my friends says, look at that, you'd go out and you'd play poker well into the night, and then you come home talking to yourself the whole way home. And that's what you do. You come home and you're lecturing yourself. You're trying to relearn. You're trying to restructure how you do things. And then you're always trying to manage that. Again, you have to be very strict in the rules, whether it's one night or 2 nights a week, and you're trying to manage the time, especially as a woman, and when you have a young family and you have a full-on career, that whole time management thing. Because really, when you sit at a table, and Fergal, you know it better than anyone else, time means nothing. It means absolutely nothing, and there's no, and people would say to you, how come that you don't get tired? You could never get tired, because you're always going, and you're always busy. So managing all those things, that has been a great challenge, and still wanting to stay in the game. But it has been a great source of friendship as well to me. I've met some great people that our paths would have never, ever, ever crossed.
I find myself in it, what's fascinating about you from a personal point of view is that I know you're a great moral guardian, as in for myself now in times of trouble, and it's happened. You've been one of the first I picked up the phone to, and I'm sure there's many others, who you're the first number to dial. Yet at the poker table, you were absolutely fearless and a fearsome character. I remember the first time I went into the Adelaide in Sligo, you absolutely scared the shit out of me when you stared me down and told me, "Sonny, leave these blinds alone."
That's the old bit of school teacher in me. Now think back to the teachers you had. There were teachers that you had tremendous respect for, that you loved to bits, but there was a line you didn't cross ever. And
I remember when I first came on the scene locally, and when I first started improving in the game, that a lot of the older players in the casino were dismissing it as, you're too aggressive and you're too lucky, which I probably was at the time. But when they'd be saying this to me on the breaks, you'd come out and you would always say, what are you doing there, and why are you doing that? You've always struck me as someone that's always keen to learn and keep up with the game. So what type of changes have you made to your game?
Oh yeah, I clearly haven't made enough, because I'm not successful enough, Fergal. I clearly haven't made enough. But there are two different kind of games going on, broadly speaking, within the Texas No Limit Hold'em. If I go to Dublin, I have to try and play a style of a game. If not, I can forget about it. When I'm playing in a local pub in the west of Ireland, in order to ensure any degree of success, I have to play a particular kind of game. Now, the way I would describe them is like hurling and golf. Both of them have a stick and a ball, but that's about the only resemblance they have to each other. So the Dublin game, you will go broke playing it in the pub in the west of Ireland. The west of Ireland pub game, you will go absolutely broke that if you go to the bigger tournament and play that kind of game. I found a bit of success early on in the No Limit Hold'em, because I kind of played a power game the power game when you go to the bigger tournament. Just it can't happen until late stages into the tournament. If you're not playing the small ball stuff, you can forget about it. And if you can't play it successfully, if you can't 3-bet, 4-bet, whatever kind of betting they're doing, those seem to be the people that are continually ensuring success for themselves. If you do that in the west of Ireland in a pub, you're going to go broke so fast. So it is a completely different dynamic. So I suppose a lot of cleverness in poker is probably playing your table and playing your people more so than any particular strategy. But like the kind of poker you play is phenomenal. The kind of poker, like I've been at games and these young fellas with glasses and headphones and they'll 3-bet, 4-bet and whatever else. They'll constantly put you under pressure. The pressure you'll be under will be phenomenal. They're just very good at what they do. I sit back in admiration. Now, an awful lot of players my age will say is, sure, they're doing not that and they don't have hands at all or they've only suited connectors and they're hoping to get lucky. That is nonsense because they end up with the chips.
I'm looking at a picture on your wall here, sitting beside Dan Harrington at an Irish Open.
Yeah.
What type of ambassadors in the game do you admire? Who do you think does this game correctly?
Oh, you have to admire the likes of Donald Cody. You have to admire people who are gentle, endearing, open and available to discussion, who can speak well, who have no roughness or gruffness about them. You have to admire people that engage with you when you go to the game. Like, in all fairness, while I have the absolute utmost admiration for some of the young players and what they can do technically, but really sitting down with you with a pair of earphones on and scrolling through a gizmo, short of anything, like, it is bad manners. Like that if my young fella did it that at the table that I'd be giving him a clip across the ear. It's bad manners. It's as simple as all that. Like, I would love to see a game where every bit of stuff was banned from the table. Like, and even this crack of giving people even technically the edge that of whole cards being revealed a half an hour later than when there's still a game going on. There's a whole question mark over that in my eyes. The whole use of trackers online. Don't call it, like, it bears such a little resemblance to what poker was. I get it hard. It is a science, but that's what it is. It isn't quite poker anymore. How can I sit down and play against those guys when I know I'm bet before I start? So, in a sense, will they kill the goose that has been laying the golden egg? I have been, like, when I go up to the Irish Open, the likes of you now, Fergal, or the likes of O'Carney, or the likes of any decent top Irish standard player, they are looking at me and they're saying, she's the meat in the sandwich. Now, they would want to be careful because they could be left with a sandwich without any meat in it. Because...
Yeah, you've often made me actually down in the Adelaide eat that vegetarian sandwich. So on that, where do you see your future in the game as it is today?
Oh, good Lord, I don't know, Fergal. I don't know where my future is. My future is playing one night, maybe 2 nights a week locally as a social thing, which it always has been. And if I'm good enough, or if I'm lucky enough, making a few quid in it. My future is taking a few trips with any of the companies, whether it be overseas or whether it be in Ireland, and taking a shot at something bigger. That is my future. I would hate to be where you are now, even though I have the utmost admiration for you, to have to try and make a living from poker. That's why I have such absolute respect for O'Carney and Nappin and all them. They're bright, intelligent guys that, as you are, who could make a living at anything else. But the challenge you face in a diminishing pool, like, there is a danger that you will that you'll end up eating one another, and between that and the industry, there's another thing now is, back in the day, no penny of poker went to the industry. No penny of poker, except in a tournament. No penny of cash went down the chute. So the money you sat down with, it went round the table. And you got more mileage for it. Now it is going down the chute. And long term, that's impossible. Especially when you're playing small time stakes. That's virtually impossible to sustain. sure, inside of 5 or 6 nights, that if the same pool of players are playing, whatever they're playing with, that if they're playing with a couple of €100 each, which is all gone down the chute. Now, I understand that the industry has to survive, and I understand that the industry promotes it that, but like the online reg fees and the online rake is totally ridiculous for something that's happening in cyberspace. Jesus, sure, them companies were just watching it go around like it was a second clock, clocking up the millions and billions, the likes of poker stars and all that for years, and I don't know. So I don't know where the future of it is. It has definitely contracted big time. It has definitely been oversaturated and it has been diluted. But whatever future I have, for me, it is the live game. Like, I am not going to, an old dog, new tricks. I'm not going to go back and start... I'm not going to go back and do the equivalent of a university degree to be able to play online poker.
So now, Annette, that was fascinating. And look, I just want to say on a personal note, you're a great friend of mine. And as I said earlier, a real moral guardian. You have fantastic nuggets of wisdom. And thank you so much for sharing these nuggets on the podcast today.
Yeah, but, I've often seen even Fergal, you now, and seen other lads that are good young fellas. And they can beat themselves up over the game. And they can beat themselves up about their level of success and what did they do right and what did they do wrong. And then I've seen fellas getting up, young prats getting up with a bit of temper, that if they get a bad beat or something, like, it's a game. It's a game. Like you would know better now than I would, because you'd know on a world circuit the people who have achieved phenomenal success and have now gone broke,
Well, on that note, Annette.
And if you do go broke, come out to me, that will make you the dinner. We'll keep you fed anyway.
Well, listen, thanks very much, Annette. You're a real lady of the game and a real legend of the game in my eyes.
Go on, that you're most flattering. And then I like that in young men. Thank you.